You really live like this every day? Kira's words sliced through the silence, dripping with disdain as her eyes wandered around our modest living room. It was a seemingly innocent question, but it struck a nerve, a familiar chord that had been playing on repeat ever since my sister-in-law decided to grace us with her near-constant presence. "What do you mean?" I asked, unable to mask the sharpness in my tone. The refrain of Kira's disapproval had become a tiresome accompaniment to our otherwise quiet and fulfilling life. "Oh, you know," she waved a hand dismissively, "this whole minimalist thing you've got going on." Her lips curled into a smirk as she plopped down on our worn but comfortable sofa, making herself at home once again, uninvited. I opened my mouth to respond, but Eli cut me off with a gentle hand on my arm. "Kira, we like our home just the way it is," he said in a placating tone as if trying to soothe a wild animal. "It suits our needs perfectly." I bit back the retort that hovered on my tongue, swallowing the bitter words that would only escalate the situation. Eli meant well, but his refusal to confront Kira's entitled and invasive behavior only fueled my resentment. "If you say so," Kira shrugged, reaching for the remote control. "Hey, did you guys get that new cable package? I want to see if they have that home improvement show I was telling you about." Without waiting for a response, she flicked through the channels, her eyes glued to the screen, as if she owned the place. Meanwhile, Eli cast a helpless glance in my direction, silently pleading for me to maintain the peace. But this was our home, our sanctuary, a place where we had planned to welcome our first child into the world, and Kira's constant disruptions were slowly eroding the joy and anticipation that should have filled these moments. I took a deep breath, trying to rein in the storm brewing within me. Confrontation would only breed more chaos, and I couldn't afford to let Kira's negative energy taint the precious time I had left before our baby arrived. So I plastered a smile on my face and excused myself, retreating to the bedroom, where I could escape the suffocating weight of her presence. But as I closed the door behind me, I couldn't shake the feeling that Kira's intrusions were just the beginning, and that far more turbulent times lay ahead. Kira's visits became increasingly frequent, coinciding with every significant milestone in my pregnancy. As my belly swelled with life, her presence seemed to suffocate the joy that should have surrounded this miraculous time. "Oh, good, you're here," Kira exclaimed one afternoon as she barged through the front door, her usual greeting devoid of any genuine warmth. I was worried I'd missed the big event. "Kira, what are you talking about?" I asked, confusion mingling with the all-too-familiar dread that knotted my stomach whenever she appeared unannounced. "The baby shower, of course." She rolled her eyes as if I were being deliberately obtuse. "I assumed you'd be having one, you know, to celebrate and get all the essentials for the little bundle of joy." I stared at her, dumbfounded. "We're not having a baby shower. Eli and I decided we'd rather keep things low-key and intimate." "Low-key?" Kira scoffed, tossing her designer handbag onto the couch. "How utterly boring. You need to embrace the excitement, Mara. This is a momentous occasion, and you're acting like it's just another day at the office." Before I could respond, Eli emerged from the bedroom, his hair tousled from an afternoon nap. "Kira, what a nice surprise," he said, his voice tinged with a weariness that told me he found her visits just as draining as I did. "Eli, can you believe your wife isn't having a baby shower?" Kira demanded, rounding on him with her hands planted firmly on her hips. "It's like she's just going through the motions instead of celebrating this incredible journey." I opened my mouth to defend myself, but Eli beat me to it. "Mara and I discussed it, and we're happy with our decision," he said, trying to placate his sister as he so often did. "This is our first child, and we want to keep things simple." Kira scoffed again, her disdain palpable. "Simple? You two have never done anything but live a simple life. It's no wonder you're so woefully unprepared." Her words stung, hitting a nerve that had been fraying for far too long. I turned to Eli, hoping he would finally take a stand and defend our choices, our lifestyle, me. But he simply shrugged, his eyes pleading with me to let it go. The bitter taste of disappointment coated my tongue as I swallowed my frustration. Once again, I found myself alone in navigating Kira's intrusive and entitled behavior, with Eli's passive acquiescence only enabling her further. As Kira prattled on about the lavish event she would have planned, had she been in charge, I felt a wall solidifying between Eli and me, a barrier constructed brick by brick, with each dismissal of my concerns and each failure to confront his sister's disrespect. And in that moment, I knew our quiet, fulfilling life would never be the same. Morning sickness had become a cruel companion, sapping my energy and leaving me nauseous and drained. As I lay curled up on the couch, trying to find solace in the quiet stillness of the house, the shrill sound of the doorbell shattered the fragile peace. "I'll get it," Eli called from the kitchen, his voice already tinged with resignation. I knew that tone. It meant only one thing. Kira had arrived unannounced yet again. "Mara?" Eli's voice rang out, confirming my suspicions. "Kira is here." I groaned inwardly, bracing myself for the impending tornado that was about to rip through our home. "Just tell her I'm not feeling well," I called back, hoping against hope that, for once, Kira might show a shred of consideration, but my plea was met with silence, followed by the unmistakable sound of Kira's voice, grating and intrusive as ever. "Mara, are you still wallowing on that couch?" she chided as she swept into the living room, her presence instantly suffocating. "You're not even trying to hide the fact that you're a miserable lump these days." I bit back the angry retort that rose in my throat, knowing it would only escalate the situation. Instead, I turned my face away, unable to bear the sight of her smug expression. "Kira, Mara isn't feeling well today," Eli tried to intervene, his voice wavering between exasperation and appeasement. "Maybe we can catch up another time?" But Kira waved off his suggestion with a flick of her perfectly manicured hand. "Nonsense. I'm here now, and I'm sure Mara could use the company." She dropped onto the couch beside me, her proximity suffocating. I fought the urge to recoil, my skin crawling with disgust at her utter disregard for my boundaries and well-being. "You know, I never had morning sickness like this when I was pregnant," Kira continued, oblivious to the storm brewing within me. "Then again, I actually took care of myself instead of lying around feeling sorry for myself all day." I snapped. "Kira, I'm not in the mood for your criticisms today," I spat, the words tumbling out in a rush. "If you can't be supportive, I'd rather you just leave." Silence hung in the air, thick with tension. Kira's eyes narrowed, her lips pressing into a thin line of anger. "Well, I never." Mara's right, Eli's voice cut through the charged atmosphere, surprising us both. "She needs rest, Kira. I think it's best if you go." For a moment, I dared to hope that Eli had finally found his resolve, that he was standing up for me and our family. But then Kira's gaze shifted to him, her eyes narrowing even further. "Fine," she snapped, rising from the couch in a huff. "I'll go, but don't expect me to be so accommodating next time." Sure. With that, she spun on her heel and stormed out, leaving a tense silence in her wake. I turned to Eli, searching his face for a sign that this moment had truly been a turning point, that he was finally seeing Kira for who she was. But his expression was troubled, his eyes pleading with me to understand. And in that instant, I knew Eli had not chosen me over his sister. He had simply done the bare minimum to maintain the peace, as he always did. As disappointment and resignation washed over me, I realized that the true tipping point had not been Kira's behavior, but Eli's continued failure to defend me and our family. And in that moment, I knew that something had to change, before Kira's toxic presence destroyed us all. The voicemail from Kira was the final straw. Her shrill voice, dripping with disdain, announced yet another unannounced visit, as if our home were her personal playground and our boundaries mere suggestions to be ignored. I stared at my phone, anger and resentment burning through me like wildfire. I had endured Kira's intrusions, her blatant disrespect, and her toxic presence for far too long. And Eli's failure to stand up for me, to protect our family, had only emboldened her entitled behavior. Enough was enough. I sprang into action, moving through the house with a newfound determination. I emptied the pantry, the cabinets, the refrigerator, stripping them bare until only the barest essentials remained. Kira wanted to treat our home like her personal domain. Fine, let her experience the true consequences of her actions. As I worked, my mind raced with the knowledge that I couldn't stay here, couldn't continue to subject myself to this constant onslaught of disrespect and disregard. I needed space, a sanctuary away from Kira's toxic presence, a place where I could breathe, regroup, and strategize my next move. I quickly packed a bag, grabbing only the essentials. There was no time to dwell on sentiment or attachment. This was survival, a desperate bid to preserve my sanity and protect the well-being of my unborn child. Just as I was about to leave, Eli walked through the door, his brow furrowed in confusion as he took in the empty kitchen and my packed bag. "Mara, what's going on?" he asked, his voice tinged with concern. I met his gaze, my resolve unwavering. "I'm going to stay with my parents for a while," I said, the words falling from my lips with a finality that left no room for argument. Eli's eyes widened. "What? Why? What happened?" I shook my head, disappointment burning hot in my chest. "You don't see it, do you? You refuse to acknowledge the damage Kira is causing, the way she tramples over our boundaries and disrespects me at every turn. Well, I'm done. I can't keep subjecting myself to this toxic environment." Eli opened his mouth to protest, but I held up a hand, silencing him. "Don't try to talk me out of this," I said, my voice trembling with the weight of my emotions. "I need space, Eli. I need to get away from Kira's constant presence and your refusal to stand up to her. Until you can see the truth and make real changes, I can't be here." With that, I shouldered my bag and pushed past him, my heart heavy with the knowledge that our relationship hung in the balance. But as I stepped out into the crisp evening air, I felt a glimmer of hope. A sense that, by taking this drastic step, I might finally be able to reclaim my power, my dignity, and my life. And if Kira thought her intrusions had been disruptive before, she had no idea what was in store. The game had changed, and I was no longer playing by her rules. As the familiar sights of my childhood hometown rolled past the car window, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. This is what I needed, a sanctuary away from Kira's toxic presence, a place to regroup and regain my strength. "Mara, honey, are you sure about this?" My mother's gentle voice broke the silence, her eyes filled with concern. I took a deep breath, steeling my resolve. "Yes, Mom. I can't keep living like this. Kira's behavior has become unbearable, and Eli refuses to stand up to her. I need space to think, to figure out my next move." My father's grip tightened on the steering wheel, his jaw clenched. "That sister of his has always been a piece of work," he grumbled. "I never understood why Eli couldn't see her for who she really is." "It's like she has him under some kind of spell," I sighed. "No matter how much she disrespects me or tramples our boundaries, he just lets it happen, as if keeping the peace with her is more important than protecting his own family." The disappointment in my voice was palpable, and my mother reached across the console to give my hand a comforting squeeze. "Well, you did the right thing by getting away," she said firmly. "Let Eli deal with the consequences of his sister's behavior for a change. Maybe then he'll finally see the light." As we pulled up to my parents' cozy bungalow, a small flicker of hope ignited within me. Maybe this was exactly what Eli needed, a wake-up call, a taste of the chaos and strain that Kira had inflicted upon our lives for far too long. Without me there to act as a buffer, to absorb the brunt of her demands and disrespect, Eli would be forced to confront the full weight of Kira's entitled nature. And perhaps, just perhaps, that experience would finally open his eyes. "Come on, let's get you settled," my dad said, breaking me from my thoughts. "We've got your old room all ready for you." As I stepped into the house, the familiar scents and sounds enveloped me like a warm embrace. This is what I needed, a safe haven, a place to gather my strength and formulate a plan. Because I couldn't stay away forever. Sooner or later, I would have to return and face the consequences of my actions. But when I did, I would be ready to draw a line in the sand, to demand the respect and boundaries that Kira had so blatantly disregarded. And this time, I wouldn't be alone. Eli would have no choice but to see the truth, to acknowledge the damage his sister had wrought upon our family. And if he refused to make the necessary changes, to stand by my side and protect our little family, then I would have to make a choice, one that I had never imagined possible. But for now, I pushed those weighty thoughts aside, allowing myself to bask in the warmth and security of my childhood home. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges, but tonight I would rest, fortifying myself for the battles that lay ahead. The shrill ringing of the doorbell pierced the silence, shattering the fragile peace that had settled over the house since Mara's departure. With a weary sigh, Eli dragged himself from the couch and trudged to the door, knowing exactly who he would find on the other side. "Kira," he greeted his sister with a forced smile, already bracing himself for the impending storm. "Finally!" she huffed, pushing past him without invitation. "I've been ringing the doorbell for ages. What took you so long?" Eli bit back a retort, reminding himself that confrontation would only escalate the situation. "I was in the other room," he said, trying to keep his tone even. "Well, next time, try to be a bit more attentive," Kira chided, dropping her purse onto the couch with a loud thump. "Where's Mara? I need to discuss the arrangements for my next visit." Eli's gut twisted at the mention of his wife's name. "Mara's not here," he said quietly. "She's staying with her parents for a while." Kira's perfectly sculpted brows shot up in surprise. "What? Why on earth would she do that?" Eli swallowed hard, the weight of his failure pressing down upon him like a physical burden. "She needed some space," he admitted, unable to meet his sister's piercing gaze. "Space?" Kira scoffed. "From what? Her perfect little life? She's just being dramatic as usual." Eli clenched his jaw, her words reigniting the embers of resentment that had been smoldering within him since Mara's departure. "She needed space from you, Kira," he blurted out, the truth tumbling from his lips before he could stop it. Silence hung in the air, thick with tension. Kira's eyes narrowed, her lips pressing into a thin line of anger. "Excuse me?" Eli took a deep breath, steeling his resolve. "Mara couldn't handle your constant intrusions anymore. Your disrespect for her boundaries, your complete lack of consideration, it became too much." Kira's face flushed with indignation. "How dare you speak to me like that? I'm family, Eli. I have every right to be here, to be involved in your lives." Eli shook his head, anger and frustration bubbling up within him. "No, Kira, you don't. Not when you treat our home like your personal playground, not when you trample over Mara's wishes and make her feel disrespected in her own house." Kira opened her mouth to protest, but Eli held up a hand, silencing her. "You've been nothing but a hindrance, Kira, a constant source of stress and chaos, and I've been too blind to see it." As the words tumbled out, Eli felt a weight lifting from his shoulders, a burden he hadn't even realized he'd been carrying. Confronting Kira, standing up to her entitled behavior, it was long overdue. "Well, if that's how you feel, then maybe I won't come around as often," Kira snapped, grabbing her purse and storming towards the door. Eli watched her go, a strange sense of relief washing over him. For the first time in a long time, he felt as though he could breathe, as though the suffocating weight of Kira's presence had finally been lifted. But as the silence settled over the house once more, a new realization began to dawn on him. Mara had been right all along. She had seen the truth, had tried to make him understand the damage Kira was causing. And he had failed her, time and time again, choosing to maintain the peace rather than protect his own family. As the full weight of his negligence crashed over him, Eli felt a surge of determination. He couldn't undo the past, but he could make amends. He could prove to Mara that he was finally ready to stand by her side, to fight for their family and the life they deserved. With renewed purpose, Eli began to assess the chaos that Kira had left in her wake. The empty fridge, the cluttered living room, the trail of demands and complaints, it was a harsh reality check, a glimpse into the daily struggles that Mara had endured for far too long. As he worked to restore order to their home, Eli's resolve grew stronger with each passing minute. He would not fail Mara again. He would show her, through his actions and his unwavering support, that he was ready to be the partner she deserved. And when she finally returned, he would make things right, no matter what it took. The sound of a car pulling into the driveway jolted me from my thoughts. I peered through the living room window, my heart leaping into my throat as I recognized my parents' familiar sedan. The moment of truth had arrived. I steeled myself, taking a deep breath as the front door swung open. Mara stepped inside, her eyes immediately finding mine. For a moment, we simply stared at one another, the weight of all that had transpired hanging heavy in the air. "Mara," I began, my voice thick with emotion, "I'm so sorry." She blinked, surprise flickering across her features. "Sorry? For what exactly?" I ran a hand through my hair, struggling to find the right words. "For everything. For not seeing the truth. For not standing up to Kira and protecting you." protecting our family. Mara's expression hardened, her jaw clenching. It's a little late for apologies, Eli. I begged you to intervene, to put an end to Kira's disrespect and entitlement. But you just let it happen, over and over again. Her words stung, but I knew I deserved them. You're right. I was blind and I failed you in the worst way. But I promise you, Mara, my eyes are open now. I finally see the damage Kira was causing, the stress and chaos she inflicted upon us. Oh, really? Mara's voice dripped with skepticism. And what exactly opened your eyes? I took a deep breath, knowing that the truth would be difficult to hear. After you left, Kira came over, as belligerent and entitled as ever. She couldn't understand why you needed space, why you felt the need to get away from her constant intrusions. Mara's eyes widened, and I pressed on, determined to lay everything bare. I couldn't hold back any longer. I confronted her, told her the truth about how she had trampled over your boundaries and made you feel disrespected in your own home. You stood up to Kira? Mara's voice was laced with disbelief. I nodded, a sense of shame washing over me. I know, I should have done it sooner, but better late than never, right? Mara shook her head slowly, her expression unreadable. And what did Kira say? How did she react? I grimaced at the memory. She was furious, of course. Couldn't handle the truth. She stormed out, said she wouldn't be coming around as much. Mara's lips curved into a humorless smile. So she threw a tantrum and left, as usual. And you think that's enough? That standing up to her once, after years of enabling her behavior, is going to make everything better? Her words stung, but I knew she was right. No, of course not. I know I have a lot of work to do, a lot of trust to rebuild. But I'm ready, Mara. I'm ready to be the partner you deserve, to fight for our family and put you first. Silence hung in the air, thick with tension. Mara's gaze searched mine, her eyes glimmering with a mixture of hope and wariness. I want to believe you, Eli, I really do, but words aren't enough anymore. You have to prove it to me through your actions and your unwavering support. I nodded, my resolve hardening. I know, and I will, Mara. I promise you, I will do whatever it takes to make things right between us. Mara's expression softened, just a fraction. We'll see, she said, her voice laced with a cautious optimism. But for now, I think it's best if I stay with my parents for a little while longer. It wasn't the outcome I had hoped for, but I knew I had no one to blame but myself. I had allowed this rift to form, had failed to protect my wife and our family. And now I would have to work twice as hard to bridge that divide, to prove that I was ready to be the partner she deserved. As Mara turned and headed back towards her parents' car, I watched her go, a newfound determination burning within me. This was my chance to make things right, to show her that I had truly learned from my mistakes, and I would not squander it. Not this time. The moving truck rumbled down the quiet street, its presence a stark contrast to the tranquil neighborhood. As it pulled up to our new home, a sense of excitement and trepidation washed over me. This was it, the fresh start we had both been craving. You ready? Eli asked, giving my hand a gentle squeeze. I took a deep breath, nodding slowly. As I'll ever be. We had been through so much, our relationship hanging by a thread after Kira's relentless intrusions. But Eli had proven himself, time and time again, standing firm against his sister's entitled demands and prioritizing our family above all else. It hadn't been easy. There were still moments of doubt, flashes of resentment that threatened to reignite the flames of our past conflicts. But we had worked through them, our communication stronger than ever. And now, as we prepared to embark on this new chapter, I couldn't help but feel a sense of optimism. The movers began unloading our belongings, and Eli and I set to work, directing them through the unfamiliar rooms. As we bustled about, a familiar figure appeared on the sidewalk, her stilettos clicking against the pavement. Well, what do we have here? Kira's voice rang out, as grating as ever. I tensed, bracing myself for another confrontation. But before I could respond, Eli stepped forward, his jaw set with determination. Kira, what are you doing here? He demanded, his tone brooking no argument. She scoffed, tossing her perfectly coiffed hair over her shoulder. What do you mean? What am I doing here? I'm family, remember? I have every right to know what's going on in your lives. Eli shook his head, his stance unwavering. Not anymore, Kira. We've moved, and we're not giving you the new address. Kira's eyes widened in disbelief. What? You can't be serious. I am, Eli said firmly. We're drawing a line, Kira. After everything you put Mara through, the constant disrespect and entitlement, we're not letting you back into our lives. Kira's face flushed with anger, her perfectly sculpted features contorting into a mask of fury. How dare you? After everything I've done for you, you're just going to cut me out like this? You did this to yourself, Kira, I chimed in, my voice steady and resolute. We gave you chance after chance to treat us with respect, to honor our boundaries, but you refused, time and time again, and now you have to face the consequences. Kira's eyes narrowed, her lips pressing into a thin line. Fine, she spat. If that's how you want to play it, then good riddance. You'll be sorry when you realize how much you need me. With that, she spun on her heel and stalked away, her heels striking the pavement with an angry rhythm. As we watched her retreating figure, a sense of relief washed over me. We had finally reclaimed our power, our dignity, our lives. Eli pulled me into a tight embrace, his touch warm and comforting. We did it, he murmured into my hair. We stood our ground, and we won. I nodded, allowing myself to sink into his embrace. We did, and now we can start fresh, on our own terms. As we turned back towards our new home, a weight seemed to lift from my shoulders. The future stretched out before us, full of promise and possibility, and for the first time in a long time, I knew that Kira's toxic presence would no longer cast a shadow over our lives. We were free to build the future we deserved, the life we had always dreamed of. And as we stepped over the threshold, hand in hand, I knew that this was just the beginning of our journey.